Good morning and welcome to the Tulane University School of Social Work's virtual health spot. My name is Dr. Deirdre Hayes, professor of practice at TSSW, and along with me is Carrie Mulder, our media outreach coordinator, and our student intern, Jeremy Parks. Pre-COVID, the School of Social Work hosted a monthly in-person health fair providing information and services to individuals who use the corridor to access the downtown New Orleans. The partners provided STD testing, dental screenings, and assessments for substance abuse and mental illness. In addition, the Health Spot served to provide information on housing, voting, and multiple services available in the community. Although COVID has interrupted our in-person service and we look forward to starting it again soon, we want to continue to provide webinars to address current and systemic issues facing our community. Today's topic is mindfulness and meditation. Our speakers are Richard Collins, Abbot of the New Orleans Zen Temple, Judge Lori Jupiter, who besides being a great jurist, is a mom, doula, and trained in meditation and mindfulness. Kendra Joy Parsons, LMSW of the Gracefully Mindful Wellness Institute, and our speaker and Master of Social Work candidate, Jeremy Parks. We want to take this time to bring in the new semester with a calm presence and a positive vibe. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our MSW candidate, Jeremy Parks.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Jeremy Parks. I am an MSW candidate at Tulane. I'm also a middle school teacher and I'm currently at work. So if you hear some little bitty noises behind me, it's small children entering my room or leaving it. So, but I'm gonna get started right now. My presentation is about Zen meditation, how I came to it, and what I found in it that I've been able to bring to other aspects of my life, in my job, my meditation, and then my MSW candidacy. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing right now and just kind of take you on a brief little tour from how I went from a Roman Catholic boy in New Orleans to a practicing Zen meditation and an MSW candidacy. So let me share my screen. So, oh, sorry, hold on one second there, folks. And my computer decided to act funny right now. Let me go ahead and stop sharing real quick. So again, I will just try this one more time. Always an adventure with. Here we go. There we go. It should be loading now. Okay. My presentation is called Zen and Me, from agnostic to Zen to an MSW program. So it all starts as I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, 42 years old. I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church. My family is Sicilian, so Roman is a very large part of growing up. It is a huge influence on my life. My family is still devout Roman Catholics, from my parents to my aunt, uncles, everybody. But also I had a very serious influence in the Episcopal Church. I actually, my first 8 years of school, I went to an Episcopal school in New Orleans. That had a huge influence on me because, unlike a Roman Catholic school, when you have religious education, which focuses on Roman Catholicism and the catechism of Roman Catholicism, an Episcopal school they believe very deeply in ecumenicism. So you get a very wide-ranging education in religion, not just Catholic religions, but also Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism. I was very throughout my 8 years, I was exposed to a lot of different religions, and it just always caught my curiosity. After my 8th grade year, I moved on to a Catholic high school in New Orleans, and that my view of religion began to change at that point. I was frustrated by just kind of the single-minded focus of the education I was receiving religion-wise. And it's sometimes you don't always get your questions answered. And so I began to get frustrated by religion at that point. And I started just kind of moving on with my life. I never became a strong atheist, but, you know, I kind of settled into a kind of a healthy agnosticism, like where I didn't necessarily believe in the church and I wasn't necessarily going to go back to it, but I never kind of give up hope to find that thing, that thing bigger than me that I can kind of latch onto and kind of influence my life. So I kind of went through my life like that until 2013, when my father was diagnosed with lung cancer. This was a very jarring experience for my life. And for the first time, I was confronted with these larger questions. For a long time, I just kind of coasted along. So suddenly I had these deeper questions and I started looking at my life, my father's life, our relationship. And over time, I kind of developed a lot of anger and I kind of sank into a depression at the time. And my father fought cancer for 5 years. It was 5 very long, very arduous years. And over that time, I began overthinking everything. I began dwelling on the past. I began dwelling on the future and not knowing where things were ending up, not knowing how my father was going to do, not knowing whether he was going to last through the year. I developed a severe anxiety disorder. I was constantly worried. I was constantly focusing on the bad. And that began my life began to suffer because of that. My job, my relationships, I kind of lost purpose and I was just kind of drifting there for a while. So things started to change about the end of 2018. I decided that because my health insurance isn't wonderful, I really couldn't afford a quality therapist. So I began looking for my own way to kind of get myself out of this funk I was in. I used my trusty library card, began visiting my local library and just checking out books on anything I could think of. I decided that I had been told by friends of mine that, you know, I should consider picking up a meditation practice. Like, this helps me, this will help you. So using my only way I know how to do things, I started going to the library, checking out books, bringing home everything I can. I went through books on transcendental meditation. I tried yoga. I was given a book on Vipassana meditation, and quite frankly, none of it clicked with me. I was having a hard time. I've always had a very active mind, and the idea of sitting down and turning off my mind or focusing heavily on something just never worked for me. I could never really get it to function the way I wanted it to. It was not giving me what I needed. So what really changed for me was I got sent to San Antonio for a work trip for a conference, and I needed a book to read in the plane. So I was digging through my old books and I found a copy of The Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac. Like most white male Americans, I went through a Kerouac phase, and I have an English degree, so you can't blame me for it. But I read that book, and it's a 140-page novel. It's very brief, but I became mildly obsessed with it. I read it twice, and I was like, okay, there's something here. I'm attracted to this. And so the next thing I did, I went to the bookstore. I picked up a copy of Philip Kapleau's 3 Pillars of Zen. It's a monster. It's about 600 pages, and I honestly never finished it. It became too dense for me, but at that point, the seed was planted. I was like, I think this might be the thing for me. So the next thing I did, I went to the internet, looked up Zen meditation New Orleans, and the first thing that popped up was the New Orleans Zen Temple, Richard Collins, the Abbot there. And I attended a beginner seminar. This was about 2 years ago, right after my father passed in 2019. So I went to my first Zen seminar, and I realized that this might be the thing for me. So why? Why did Zen click for me and nothing else did? The first thing was the simplicity. You sit. It's a practice where you simply sit. In the posture you see before you there, you sit, and that's the start of it. You sit properly, and you aren't focused on something. You aren't running through things in your head. You're simply letting thoughts come and letting thoughts go. And that appealed to me because that was something I felt I could do. I wasn't trying to turn my brain off. I just wasn't letting it dominate the conversation. Also, it gave me a community. Suddenly I had a place I could go. Now, I didn't go to New Orleans Zen Temple all the time. It was rather out of my way. I found another local temple to practice at. And then when COVID hit, I practiced at home. I began a practice at home. I formed a little meditation corner in my extra bedroom and started doing it every morning, 15 minutes, and then slowly started adding time to it. And I found that I was able to do this. My body got used to the posture, and I got better and better at not letting my thoughts intrude into simply taking the now as it is. And then finally, it gave me what I needed. I had a problem dwelling on the past. I was having a hard time letting go of my father's death and how it affected me. And I was finally able to not focus on the past, not worry about the future. I learned how to be in the now. As cliche as that sounds, the first time in my life, I found that, able to just be now. So, okay, so I found this thing and it worked for those 15 to 30 minutes, maybe an hour on the weekends when I could. It worked then, and that was great. But I was still having trouble at work. I was still having trouble with my relationships. How could I bring all of this together? I tried reading, I started getting books, and a lot of the literature, Zen literature, is fairly impenetrable. I was having a very difficult time making heads or tails of it, trying to find more, and that wasn't giving it to me. So I stumbled across a book called Dogen's Instructions for the Zen Cook, and that was my entryway. So Dogen was the founder of Zen Buddhism, Soto Zen Buddhism, I believe. Richard, please correct me if I'm wrong. Dogen believed the monastery's cook to be among the most important roles in the monastery. And it was best, and if done properly, you'd want an older, mature monk who was settled in the way. He knew what was to be done, and he was someone who was adept at living in that way. This appealed to me because cooking has always been of central importance to my life. I'm an Italian family, so cooking has always been an important part of my life. But like many people, I cooked to put myself through college. I cooked for 10, 12 years. I was either cooking or slinging coffee somewhere. So service industry, cooking was always a big part of my life. My family, my household, myself, my girlfriend, and my stepdaughter, we cook. Cooking is a huge part of our lives. It is a part of our community. It's something that we do together that we enjoy. We do enjoy doing it for each other. And finally, for my job, I'm a teacher. I'm an 8th grade homeroom teacher, and my school has a couple of programs that allow me to practice my art of cooking on the job. We do a lot of charity work. We cook meals for St. Mark's Church down on Rampart Street, and we serve at least 2 meals to the homeless a year. And we cook those and bring them down. We run an Outward Bound program, which I am a part of. I run 2 trips a year, one for 7th grade, where I am the house cook. I take care of the meals and I teach them how to cook themselves. And we do an actual Outward Bound program. We go to North Carolina for a week and we go camping. And also they have to take care of themselves. So cooking is a big part of that. And also, like, I was able to bring these ideas into my teaching. Like, not this isn't just for cooking meals, this is for my other job as well. And I finally found that roadmap to integrating what I felt in those 15 minutes to an hour of sitting, bringing that to every other part of my life. So these are the lessons I took from this book. I'm not going to claim to be a master Zen master or a master theologian. This is what I took from it and worked for me. I don't claim to be perfect on this. The first part of it, be one with your environment. When you walk into the kitchen, when you're in charge of the kitchen, your presence creates that environment. So you are the kitchen, you are the cook, you are the process. When you walk in there and you have people under you, or you're the only person there, the entire environment of the kitchen is created by your attitude and what you bring to the situation. So if I'm going into my classroom to teach, if I'm a goofball, the kids will be goofballs. If I am too hard on them, the kids will react to that. But if I walk in and see my students as my equals and create a loving environment, teaching becomes easier. Behavior does not become a problem. So I create the present. I create my environment by my presence. And this leads into the next thing. Treat all items with respect. If you're in a kitchen, you treat all the food, you treat every pot, every pan, every burner, every fryer, every knife, every fork with respect. It is an essential part of your job. Your job does not exist without these things. So I need to, when I cook something, I see all of it as part of a whole, and I treat everything with respect, and I treat it with love. Same thing goes for my teaching. When I walk into a classroom, every student is essential to the classroom. If they're not there, I'm not a teacher. Every computer, every assignment, every pencil, every piece of paper is an essential part of this job. It doesn't exist without me, and I need to treat them with respect, and I need to instill that into my students. And so, excuse me, one of the first lessons I teach my students is that everything we have here is sacred. It is part of it. Without these things, we don't have what we have here. We don't have this community. So treat all items with respect. The third thing, a perfect meal balances flavors. When you're cooking, you need to take into account every part of the palate: sweet, savory, salty, umami. I was getting that wrong. So when you're creating a perfect meal, you try to create harmony, balance with all those flavors. And that if you bring that harmony to a meal, you serve it, it will be appreciated, will be loved, and it will create a happy environment. In my classroom, I look to achieve harmony and bring balance because I see in each student a unique spirit, a unique ability in each student. And to bring out the best in all of them, I need to find that balance for each one, that they can see the way that bringing each of their unique abilities to a classroom creates a better environment, creates an environment that everyone is respected and everyone is cared for. And to see that that following a single way or being very single-minded will not really get you anywhere. To work together and to appreciate what you see in others is essential for a healthy community. Fourth lesson, leave no trace. Don't do later what can be done now. To leave things for later is to consider the future and to worry about the future in that moment. While you're cooking, you should also be cleaning, washing pots and pans, cleaning up your area, keeping everything as a whole, because you want to keep the job as a whole. You don't want to look at it as separate things. It's all one item. It's all one thing. And part of Zen is focusing on the now, being in the moment, being where you are, and realizing that what you're doing is the most important thing in the moment. So to leave things to another time is to consider the future and to not consider what you're doing. And the fifth lesson I took from it is in all things, you need to find the rhythm of whatever it is you're doing. And a state of flow is only achieved when all moving parts align. So everything has to be synced. Everything has to be together and working in harmony. And that goes for activity and it goes for rest as well. You need to find ways in what you're doing to bring the rest, bring the recuperation into the job. And that might mean something as simple as while you stir the pot, having a seat and taking that rest, but while still doing the activity, or finding an essential part of that activity that does not tax you. And finally, this is a quote I found about Dogen's lessons for the cook. It says, how to be present, fully present, moment by moment, without being caught in either past or future, or like or dislike. That's what this is all about. It's learning how to truly cherish the moment, to live in the moment, and to not be disturbed by things that may have happened in the past or may be happening in the future. You should take every activity in front of you as a chance to refine yourself and your abilities. You should be settled on yourself, find the confidence within yourself, and learn how to maintain your composure. Being knocked off your game by a comment or someone who's not pulling their weight is a chance to break the rhythm, to not respect what's going on around you. And learning to take care of your whole environment. Again, you create the environment by being in it. Second, you walk into a kitchen, you're part of that kitchen. You need to learn how to take care of the whole thing, because by taking care of the whole thing, you're taking care of the people within it and taking care of yourself. And there is no gap between the subject and the object. When you're cooking, you are cooking. That sounds kind of silly, but it's true. When you're doing the job, you are that job. You're part of it now. And then finally, you need to try to achieve a sense of total awareness of not just knowing what's going to go in the future, knowing what happened in the past, and learning how to integrate them into the whole and to not be distracted by things you haven't done or things you could have done. All right, that is the end of my presentation. Next up, we're going to kick it to Richard Collins, Abbot of the New Orleans Zen Temple, and he is going to get deeper into the concepts of Zen for us.
Well, hello. Hi. Thanks, Jeremy. I don't think there's anything left to say. I think you pretty much covered it. No, but I want to start by saying that you did a good job on a couple of things, and I'm going to pick up on some of those things that you started with. For one thing, you started out with a good place to start, which is the overlap between Zen and therapy. But I often tell my students, look, Zen is not therapy. It doesn't substitute for therapy, although it does have a therapeutic effect. I think sometimes people who need therapy come to Zen, and sometimes people who need Zen go to therapy, and they don't always find the right place. I think the reason Zen worked for you was that you were dealing with existential problems. These were not necessarily directly approachable or solvable through therapeutic means by themselves. My wife, by the way, for disclosure purposes, is a graduate of MSW program at Tulane, and she does a lot of mindfulness and that sort of thing in her therapy. And to expand on that a little bit, I think mindfulness has become a technique instead of a technique with a goal. And so it's been easily marketed and co-opted by a lot of different people. As you probably know, right mindfulness is one of the eightfold path. So it's one step of many in the Buddhist teachings about how to cease our constant suffering, or rather, a better way of putting that is probably how to cease our constant dissatisfaction. We're constantly dissatisfied with the way things are. And I think Jeremy sort of touched on this, at least tangentially, by talking about how dissatisfied he was, and about how he kind of got back to being satisfied by not dispersing himself into past and future, right and wrong, good and evil, black and white, Republican and Democrat, and all that stuff. All that duality that we normally exist in, and all the polarities, are really alienating these days. And it's very difficult to bring ourselves back to a calm state, to what is not really an alternate state, but the original state, which is a state of balance and connecting to what really matters instead of all the stuff that we get mad about. I had a student, one of my students last week asked about how right mindfulness was mentioned in the book that I edited by my teacher's teacher, Tyson Deshimaru, where it was translated as right memory, which was jarring because mindfulness has become such a typical translation now that it's become ensconced. But it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. It's like karma, you know. I mean, everybody knows what karma, what it sort of means, but nobody really understands it. It's really just cause and effect. But mindfulness, so I did some searching into that, and in the French version, it wasn't originally in French. It was in Zenglish, kind of a mishmash of Japanese and English. But the English students who worked on that manuscript wrote it down as right memory. In the French translation of that, it is l'attention juste, or right attention, which I think in some ways is better. I often tell my students, I never use the word mindfulness, except in discussions about this idea, because it's become such a kind of a senseless word, because everybody uses it in their own way, and nobody really agrees on what it actually means. But this, to pay attention, we have so many people who don't pay attention, and people who don't pay attention are kind of mindless, right? Mindless drivers are dangerous. Mindless neighbors are a nuisance. Mindless cooks don't serve up very good food. But I like the idea of right memory, because by the time we are mindful of whatever it is we're doing, it's already past. And mindfulness becomes sometimes a way of congratulating ourselves for being mindful. And it becomes a loop. And it becomes a loop that takes us out of the present. We pat ourselves on the back and say, "Ah, yes, aren't we good?" Which is just as bad as beating ourselves up all the time. If we're constantly, patting ourselves on the back, we lose track of where we might improve. If we are constantly beating ourselves up, we get involved in that. In my teaching, I concentrate on two things, and I think both of these help to get at mindfulness as a byproduct of practice, as a kind of natural and spontaneous outcome, rather than as a goal to be reached or as a technique to be practiced. These two things, my sort of two pillars of my teaching, are you do what needs to be done, which Jeremy, in terms of Dogen's instructions to the Tenzo or to the cook, he did a good job of outlining. And the other one is, it's not about you. And my students often sort of bristle at that when they come in, because well, if it's not about me, why am I doing this? If it's not about self-care, then what is it about? Well, it's about caring about others. And by caring about others and about caring about, as Jeremy said, about the environment and about harmonizing with others, then you can really care for yourself, and you don't have to just care for yourself. Others will care for you as well. But because you're being authentic, and not because you've created a mask or you've created a nice persona to present to the world. So I think this mindfulness that ensues from concentration, and the sitting concentration that he talked about during Zazen, we emphasize shikantaza, which means just sitting, not doing mantras, not counting breath, but as Jeremy said, and I thank you for remembering your introduction so well, we simply we let our thoughts come and go, or as Suzuki Roshi used to say, we let our thoughts come in, but we don't invite them for tea. And this includes both the thoughts that beat ourselves up, the regrets that we have, our past, but also our future ambitions, and also those things where we pat ourselves on the back. So, and even those so-called enlightenment experiences that Philip Kapleau in Three Pillars of Zen is so excited about. Those too should be just allowed to drop. Well, I've just had an enlightenment experience. What do I do now? Well, you go on to the next thing because it's not about you, and you still need to do what needs to be done. You can't just sort of bask in the enlightenment. And I'll just say one thing, because I'm gonna get to talk again at the end when we do Zazen. And that is when I started practice back in 20 years ago, back in 2001. I was teaching at Xavier, and I remember one of the first effects of my practice was going into the classroom and really listen and really hearing questions, hearing the questions instead of sort of interpreting the questions as I was hearing them, if you know what I mean. Because often I think before that I was hearing the question I wanted to answer instead of kind of the way TV talking heads do. You know, I was told by a political consultant once, when you go onto TV and you're being interviewed, don't listen to their question, just say what you have to say. Which is why probably in a lot of politicians, when you see them on TV, they don't seem to be answering the questions because they're taught not to. They're taught to go in and put in their sound bites. And I suppose I was doing a little bit of that myself as a teacher. You know, I wanted to get some things across. But I'll leave you with that. I think the maybe just one more thing is that the problem with having mindfulness or even stress reduction as a goal, that's okay to start with, but you need to not start assessing that until it's already happened. I really like to talk about the goal of no goal, because really it's having so many goals that trips us up, that turns us around and around, that drives us crazy. So if you can have no goal, but do what needs to be done now, then things will come around. You may have a goal to become, like so many of my Xavier students were going to be doctors, but once they got into what they love to do, they maybe didn't go to medical school. They maybe became lawyers or teachers or whatever it was they loved. But the goal often was an obstruction to what they loved. And I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. This has been an informative session so far. I'm so pleased to introduce our next presenter, Judge Lori Jupiter. She is the Civil District Judge for the Parish of Orleans Parish, and she presides over Domestic Division 1. And she is also a certified Zen Buddhist, certified in Zen Buddhist meditation, and having studied under monk Thich Thien Tri. Yeah, did I get it? Okay, good. I tried. And she's also a certified yoga instructor and teaches at Wild Lotus Yoga Studio. So thank you, Judge Jupiter, for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Everyone can hear me okay? I'm not good with all of this, so I hope so. So interestingly enough, that you pronounced my monk's name so wonderfully the first time. It has taken me years, and so I've just resorted now. He refers to me as Sister Lori, and I refer to him as Brother Monk. So he'll be thrilled to know that someone got on the first try. I've heard a lot today, and a lot of what has been shared is very much how I practice my meditation and my yoga practice. So what I thought I would do is share a little bit about my journey and how I got to where I am, and the benefits of my journey just for myself. And because there's so much to learn. And as we know, this is a learning process that will never end. It will go on forever. So I'll tell you how I got there. I was born and raised Catholic, and I'm the mother of 5 kids, and they too were born and raised Catholic. And I made a decision at some point in my life that, well, I've always felt this way, but more importantly, when you're raising kids, you have this new perspective, and as many of you know, on life and how you want your children to encounter life and how you want them to be. Because I have a theory that uh, you want to be happy and you want to be healthy. That's what you want for your kids, but you also want them to be just good people, no matter what. So while for myself, it was always this path of making it to the next level, whatever that would be in a profession, I was able to reflect and say, this is what I want for my children. I want them to slow down. I want them to experience life. I want them to experience people, and I want them to be happy, and I want them to be good people, as I said. Now, the only way you can achieve that is if you live it yourself. So you have to demonstrate that. So before I even decided that I was going to uh, practice Zen Buddhist meditation, and that is a part of my practice, and that's why I'm certified. And I began my certification under Thick Thin Tree in 2017. I made a conscious decision to work on myself and how I interact with others for a year. Because as you know, we run around so sometimes senselessly, just getting from one place to the other in life without ever slowing down. And that's how I've lived my life. And I'm not saying that I don't anymore daily, but I have found the space at times to slow down. And that's something I didn't have before. But not only that, recognizing that we are all related. We are all related. Everyone we encounter, whether it's somebody checking out the grocery store, someone in church, whether it's a student or your boss, you're all related in two things. Everyone wants to be healthy and no one wants to suffer. And that just makes it universal. So then what you have is every time you encounter someone, no matter where that is, you have to meet them and take them for where they are, the place where they are. And this is what I have taught my children. You never know what anyone is going through. So my practice for a year began to recognize everybody's being, one individual at a time, no matter what I was doing, and always reacting to them as I would want someone to react to me. No one wants to suffer, and everyone wants to be happy. So it was a hard journey because, as you know, when you're going through the day to day, you're moving fast, people can be rude. You sometimes may feel like you have to be rude. And so you have to take a back seat to that and really say, if I can do this, then I can make this part of my lifestyle. And to be honest with you, I didn't know if I could do it. So that's why I had to practice for a year before I made a commitment into my practice of Buddhism and Zen Buddhist meditation. Now, that also comes with the question of sometimes a lot of people bring up religion. It comes with that. And I learned born and raised Catholic, that Catholic guilt is there. My children were born and raised Catholic, same thing. But it's just, I use the Buddhism as a lifestyle and as an enhancement to what I already am and what I already know. So that practice is just the day-to-day lifestyle of how you interact. So with that, after a year, and I decided, okay, I think I can do this. That is when I began to take my classes in Zen Buddhist meditation. And the first thing we did when Brother Monk started is we sat. And we sat, which for what seemed in silence, it's not guided meditation, it's just silence. And we sat in silence for what was an incredibly, incredibly long time. And I had all these thoughts running, the grocery list, the pickup, all of these things running through my head. And I found out afterward, well, once we were done sitting, Brother Monk said, "You made 1 minute." So I said, wow, that was only 1 minute of my life. And there was so much that I lived in that 1 minute. And that's when I realized I needed to slow down. So I regularly, as now from 2017, not only do I practice meditation and mindfulness, but everything that everyone who's, come before me have said in this panel is that it's an opportunity to just be in that moment and to be aware, because every moment is ever changing and we have to realize that. But there can be a moment of stillness, whatever that looks like, where things in yourself don't necessarily make any changes, but you just sit. So I make it a regular practice to sit. And the longest I've ever sat with my monk has been for 2 hours. One time only. I've never done it again, but it was the most informative, the most enlightening 2 hours of silence. And I didn't get to that level of being able to do that until about 2 years later. So generally, I try to lead by example, and we have different ways in my household. My children aren't young; they're not babies, but they're growing adults and young adults. To offer different coping skills and mechanisms as to be in this moment, feel whatever it is you're feeling and be comfortable with it, because it is your feelings and it's in your and it's your emotion, and that's okay to live with that emotion and know that it's ever changing. So in addition to that, part of my practice is also part the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. So I won't go into detail, but there's suffering for the Four Noble Truths. There's suffering, the beginning of suffering, the end of suffering, and then the end of suffering, and then the Eightfold Path, the path to suffering, which, when you're studying it, it seems a little backwards, but then the more you read as to the Eightfold Path, the more it begins to make sense. So I always live with the Eightfold Path in my head: the right understanding, the right thought, the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, the right effort, the right mindfulness, and the right concentration. And the right concentration is when we sit and we are freed of everything that is going on around us. So I've also, in addition to my mindfulness and Buddhist meditation, have incorporated my yoga practice, which is a physical practice. And I've realized that I take them both, and they are in separate boxes for me. And sometimes they overlap. And one of the things that I've learned is that I can do yoga, and I do yoga regularly off the mat. Yoga doesn't always come with movement, with the physical movement. That's just a part of it. But I realized when I went to get to be certified by yoga certification, I realized that a lot of what I had practiced, and I did that in, 2019 is when I was certified. I realized that what I had practiced and learned from 2017 on was all a part of enhancing the physical yoga experience, because yoga, like I said, can also be accomplished off the mat, and that is just how you interact and how you move through this world in these different spaces with others. So with that, sometimes, like everything else, exercising, we fall off sometimes. You want to say it's a part of your lifestyle, and it is, but we go through peaks and valleys, and just knowing that outlet is there, teaching it to other people. One thing I do as a judge, because of the work that I do in domestics, as you can imagine, is can be very trying at times and emotionally draining, is I do sit with my staff in the morning. We sit for 10 minutes. We try to do it maybe 3 times a week. We don't necessarily accomplish that. But when I hired my staff, I said, you have to have one thing: not pen, not paper, bring a yoga mat with you. Everyone brought their yoga mat, and we sat down, we meditated. And there were people who had never meditated before. And it just sets off the start of our day of being in a space, knowing that things can change momentarily, and allowing us to have the open mind and the gracious hearts to deal with anything that comes before us when I'm sitting on the bench in the court. So that's been very helpful in just my legal career as well. So I thank you. I do want to leave you with this Rumi poem, because one of the things when you're practicing mindfulness is you have all these things that go through your head and you're trying to push them out. And instead of pushing them out, you invite them, you sit with them, you let them be. And then you notice that when you're not fighting them, that they leave. So I'm going to share this Rumi poem. It's called The Guest House. This is one of my favorite poems, and it is kind of a mantra into every day. This being human is a guest house, every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Judge Jupiter. I really appreciate your words. I remember when you began your journey and seeing you here today, I realized that that journey prepared you to be sitting on the bench. So important. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Kendra Parsons. Kendra Parsons has a program called Gracefully Minded, and she will talk to you about her journey and breathworks and what she does to work with kids in the community.
All right. Great afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited. Brother Richard and Judge Jupiter just had me over here like I'm gonna breathe, use my own breath work. They thank you, even Jeremy, thank you so much, you guys, for just setting the tone for everything that I had to say. You're gonna make my job very easy. I'm Kyndra Parson, LMSW, founder of Gracefully Mindful Wellness Institute right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am a certified meditation and mindfulness teacher, going along with a social worker and everything else that goes along with it. Yes. And right here at Gracefully Mindful, we teach individuals how to blend mind, body, and spirit through laughter, movement, breath, and grace. And so, man, Judge, when you said there are two things that everyone wants to be healthy and no one wants to suffer. Those are the things that we work with our youth every day. So what we have a program called Pathways that is through the Office of Youth and Families through the city of New Orleans. And we work with system involved youth ages 14 through 17. And we teach them life skills and work readiness through mindful meditation and creative arts. To get the youth to sit down just to breathe, just one breath, is a task within itself. And we teach that mindful meditation piece. And the fact that Bro Richard was just like, the goal is to have no goal, is amazing, because we teach them just to be still. Our youth have so much going on in their minds, like PTSD, anxiety, insomnia, ADHD, just all of these things that they don't understand what it means to be still. And so when they come in and we're just like, we have these little list of them to do, and we say, okay, now it's time for you to breathe. Tell me, how do you breathe? And they're just like, what you mean? What you mean? Tell me how you breathe. And so breath work is a vital part of what we do that goes right along with that mindful meditation piece, or meditation and or mindfulness. I just put them together because what we just try to get them to focus on is their breath. And that's why we call it mindful meditation, because mindfulness is just the focus of something. Some people say focus on the breeze going across your cheeks, or some say imagine yourself at the beach and you're relaxing, and what are the sounds that you hear. We just want them to focus on breathing in and out, because once they begin to realize that they can feel their breath moving in and out of their body, something changes within them where they're just like, okay, I'm a person. And then they become a little bit more sensitive. Sometimes we have to walk some of them out, once they realize what it is. Sometimes they fall asleep. Sometimes they just become so relaxed that we just have to allow them that time to just kind of regroup. And we talk about, how do you implement this type of feeling, this type of coping skill in the community? Because we're dealing with youth who are sometimes coming straight out of youth study, sometimes who are on probation, some who, the ones that everyone has been talking about, taking the cars, not doing the best, not making the best choices in the community. And so those are the youth that come through our doors. And so we're really trying to tell them, some of them have been shot, some of them have been the ones who've been shooting. And so they come in like this all the time. It's just like a constant. And so when we begin to teach, and we do it in a way that is cool, or what we like to think is cool. But we do it in a way that we just start talking about what breath is. And we tell them to close their eyes and, see if you can feel your breath. And of course, that's a hard thing. So we also talk about, how do you breathe correctly? That's the first thing we do. And so I'm going to ask you, how do you breathe correctly? I know you can't respond back or whatever. If you want to put it in the chat, you can. But what the first thing we do when we start talking about it is we have them to put one hand on their chest and another hand on their belly. And then we have them to take a deep breath in, and usually their bellies go in, all just wrong breathing, but we taught ourselves, we kind of reversed ourselves or reversed the whole process of breath. And so when you put your hand on your chest and you put your hand on your belly and we say breathe in, of course, everyone on here, of course, knows this. You breathe in through your nose and your belly expands. And that whole concept for them, I tell you, it's about 15 minutes of just joking. It's the first session when they come through. It's a 15-week program. So they get workshops and they get internships through local employers here. So we have 4 hours of workshops and 6 hours of internship, and then they get paid also. So when we start talking about, man, you want me to breathe? This is a concept. And it's just I'm so excited about it because they come in really hard. They come in, I got this, I'm macho, I'm this and that. And then we start breaking down to them the importance of breath, and you just see a complete change. So let me just tell you just a few benefits. We've been really talking about our journeys and the things that happen. But when you start doing mindful meditation or sitting still or just being present in that space, there are multiple things that happen, right? And so it detoxifies the body, right? It helps to release tension. So when we begin to breathe, we tell people what? First, another thing is to drop your shoulders. Make sure your feet are flat on the ground, right? Relax your face, because people clench their jaws. That's where that tension is. So not only do you have tension in your shoulders, you have tension in your jaws. And so we are like teaching them just to relax. Sometimes their body like begins to shake because it's just been so full or ridden with anxiety. They don't know what to do with it. So not only does it detoxifies and releases, it relaxes the mind and brings clarity, right? So we have better decision making, right? It helps us to manage emotions. That's another thing. So all of this breath work that we're doing, it helps with the nervous system. It helps with the decrease of impulsivity. It helps to strengthen the immune system, and it improves posture. It makes you, because you begin to feel the breath. So when you are slouched over, the kids, they sit down like this, they be like, I can't breathe. So and I'm sitting up so they can feel that breath. And then we at some point start talking about energy, but that's a whole nother conversation because right now we're on meditation and mindfulness. But not only does it do that, but it helps the blood flow, and it also helps with digestion. So and we can go on and on with the benefits, right, of mindful meditation. But with the youth that we see in the community, we're now offering mindful meditation to the employee partners or the employer partners of the Pathways program, because we're trying to teach them how to carry this method, this type of coping skill into the community and feel safe in doing that. And not feeling jokey, because that's the big thing. Man, you want me to look jokey. That's not the key. We want you to be safe, and we want you to begin to find another way, right, of dealing with negative emotions in the community. And so that is kind of like what we do. The impacts have been amazing. And I want each of you to try to just put your hand on your chest, put your hand on your belly, drop your shoulders, relax your face. And like Mr. Richard said earlier, just breathe, to have no goal. To have just no goal. With the staff, when Judge Jupiter was talking about staff doing yoga, we do mindful meditation with our staff. And so we talk about releasing, right? Releasing stress. So we say, call those things in what you want. What do you want to feel right now? And so we take a deeper, once we get the concept of what breath is and just breathing in a regular fashion, we say we are light. And so we breathe in light and then we blow out stress, right? So it's not thinking that you are, it's not like having a specific goal. It's just feeling an energy of lightness coming through your body. And you are just releasing anything else that is unlike feeling light and being light within itself. And then it also starts a conversation, well, what is light? What are you exuding? What are you feeling? And all that other stuff. And so that's the conversation of energy. And that's the conversation we also have with our youth too, because being mindful or just being in a meditative state or just doing meditation or just sitting still, it just requires you just to kind of like be at peace. And it's an energy, it's a stillness that comes along with that, a peaceful energy that a lot of our youth don't have. And sometimes our adults, sometimes I have to breathe myself, because I had to breathe through Mr. Richard and Judge Jupiter's things. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so what we do. And it's just an amazing thing to see other people just doing it. But we're doing it here with the youth, and just breath work within itself. So it starts with breath. Without proper breathing, you cannot do the meditation or be in a zenful state. And so those are the things that we teach with our youth. And I think that is all for me, Dr. Hayes, I believe, because I'm really excited and I can just go on and on and on, but I just want to make sure that I'm staying on topic and honoring the time that has been given to me, because I do not want to go over, because I definitely can and don't want to do that.
Thank you, Kendra. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited about the work Kendra is doing. You guys, the program that she is heading is a holistic and comprehensive program that deals with the needs of our youth. It is an excellent program, and she is building a model that I think we are all going to be really excited to see the outcomes of. So thank you, Kendra. I appreciate it. So next up, I think we have Richard, who is going to do an exercise with us.
Kendra, that was great. With your explanation about breath and posture, makes my job easier here. It was really great, and you know, when I was at NOCA for 4 or 5 years, 4 years, I guess, and working with the students at NOCA, we would have Zen practice sometimes, and boy, they needed it. Those creative kids, you know, they were coming from all kinds of backgrounds, and man, but they were so talented, and so that was really exciting. You know, when my daughter is now in college, but when she would come in sometimes while I was teaching a Zen introduction, afterwards she would say, well, what do you teach them exactly? And I would say, I teach them how to sit and how to breathe. And she would say, don't they know how to sit or breathe? What's wrong with them? But just like your experience, you know, that we don't really know how to breathe. You know, and we don't know how to sit up. When I was in, so what we teach here are there are really just three things in terms of what makes a good meditation posture or practice. Posture, breathing, and attitude of mind. But really it's posture and breathing, because that's where the attention should be. That's where the focus should be. And if your attention and focus is for that half hour or an hour or 15 minutes, whatever you can do, is on your posture and your breathing, then the attitude of mind just follows. It just arises naturally. And that attitude of mind is, we don't really call it mindfulness, but it's sort of like mindfulness. But it's mushutoku. This is like the one really important Japanese word we use. Mushutoku means no profit, no personal gain. So when you are when you're practicing with the attitude of Mushotoku, you're doing it not for yourself, but for all beings. And that's so freeing because you don't have that big responsibility of living up to what people expect you to be, or what trends expect you to be, or what your peers expect you to be, you know, all that peer pressure and stuff, that you're not cool, you know, that you're jokey or whatever. When I was in California, I did some prison work with the real hardcore guys in Tehachapi prison. It was really interesting how when they took the posture, especially I remember one guy in particular, he was all you know, sort of submissive, you know, like a beaten dog. And when he took the posture, he became fierce, you know, even though it was a pose. He too could be fierce for those few minutes, and you could see his mind changing, his attitude changing, and as you said, you know, the breath, the posture, it all works together, so that you can just, you know, not be suffering. So what I would like to do now is to show a couple of ways to sit, one or two with a cushion, but then one with chairs, because most of you have access to chairs, but you may not have these little round cushions that we call zafus. So I'm going to move my camera a little bit so that you can see. Oh, here we are at the temple. This is the altar. And here are some drawings from my teacher's teacher, some calligraphy, but you'll see that in a minute. Okay, so if you have one of these round cushions or anything that works like a round cushion, like this, and what you want to do is you want to be able to sit in this sort of pretzel position that I think Jeremy had a picture of early on. But the way you get into it is to bring one foot up against the cushion, one heel up against the cushion, and to put your knee on the ground. And to bring the other one, let's just say not way up here, but just on your calf. And make sure that this other knee is also on the ground. And then if you lean forward and pull the cushion up a little bit under your butt, that way you can have a very strong base. Then when you come up, be sure to keep your lower back kind of arched, okay? I'm going to turn so that you can see that better. When you come up, keep your lower back arched. Can you see that? Now it should look very erect because my shoulders are back under my ears. Chin is tucked in, collarbone up, hips are tilted slightly forward. And it may seem a little uncomfortable at first, but this is going to make you be able to sit for a long time very comfortably, and your sinuses will drain correctly and all kinds of things, and you'll be able to breathe, as Kyndra said, down to the belly, okay? And you want to keep your focus down here, not up here. The Tibetans say to think of your brain as kind of like a pat of butter, and just let the butter melt. Let everything melt down, and all your musculature should be relaxed. Not all of it now, because you also want to be pressing your head against the sky. I think I'm out of camera now, but so you press your head upwards, the crown of your head, at the same time that your body is relaxing around your spine, okay? Your spine is up, 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 and everything else is relaxed. So it's kind of, you're going in two different directions in a sense. But this allows you to breathe down into this part of your body, down around the, what's called the hara, down deep in the belly. This allows you to use all of your lung capacity, and you should even think about using your lungs that are in your back. Okay, so you're oxygenating your brain is what's happening, and we have what's called a sesshin high. A lot of people talk about that when you've done a several-day meditation retreat, that afterwards you feel this kind of brightness in the world, because basically you've not just been changing your attitude, but you've been changing your physiology and the way that you use your blood and your oxygen. Okay, you're making the most of it. Okay, so chin tucked in, shoulders under the ears, collarbone up, head pressing the sky. Now you see, when you've got your chin tucked in like this, you're kind of like looking under your eyebrows in a sense, and it can look very fierce if somebody's looking at you, and that's kind of like the guy who was in prison. You know, he had this sort of fierce samurai kind of look, I guess. And now I'm gonna give you one more possibility with a cushion, which is very comfortable for some people, which is to straddle it. Put your feet together behind, and you spread your knees like this, with the same, everything else the same from the waist up. And then finally, with the chair, let me see if I can get this. So with the chair, you just want to be sure that it's kind of, don't use the back of the chair. Sit on the seat. Put your feet flat on the floor. Spaced apart, not stay spaced together. Definitely don't do this. Again, you want to have very erect posture so that your lower back is arched, your hips are tilted in, shoulders are under your ears, chin tucked in, and it's good to put your sort of one set of fingers over the other. Put your thumbs together lightly and just rest this in your lap. And that's the posture. And we recommend not closing your eyes, because when you close your eyes, you tend to think and image and dream and sometimes fall asleep. So, but what you really want to do is to be aware of of things, but kind of keep the gaze inward and not really focused on whatever it is that's in front of you. Okay? Any questions about that? All right. How about if we try sitting for a while? Does that sound good? Who's in charge here? Is there anybody out there?
I'm here, yes, that's perfect.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will go off camera. You can just sit as you like. I'll just keep the camera on the chair because its posture is perfect. And you just want to be kind of like that chair. And what I'll do is I will ring a gong, one of the gongs we have here. And I'll ring it 3 times to start. And then I'll ring it once after. Jeremy, how long should I, or whoever's in charge, Deirdre?
Let's see, we need to end for 1:30, so let's say about 7, 8 minutes, maybe, and then we can wrap it up.
I'll do 5. How's that?
5 works.
Okay, we'll do 5 minutes. Just one other thing. I think we mentioned it earlier that as your thoughts come and go, you should just let them, notice them, note them, but don't entertain them. Don't push them away, because when you push them away, you're giving them too much credit. But don't embrace them either, even though some interesting things might come up. I think as maybe the judge said, they will go away by themselves. It's magic. In the same way that if you get a Charlie horse or a pain, as long as you don't concentrate on it, that too will go away, believe it or not. So I'll get started now. Okay, I hope that was painless and that you felt like it lasted forever. Thank you. And I will turn it back over to Deirdre and Jeremy.
All right, well, can everyone hear me? I'm sorry, I have to wear a mask. There's students in my room right now. I just wanted to, that was really wonderful. A great way to spend an hour and a half, I felt. I really enjoyed kind of like the progression from me, who's just starting out, through all these folks who have been practicing for longer and have a deeper understanding or different understanding. And I really enjoyed every second of that. And I got to practice Zazen at work, which I never get to do. That was always so much fun. If all of you will be receiving an email with the survey shortly. In fact, it may already be there, I'm not sure. If you to receive your continuing education credits, please fill out that survey and return it. And we'll take care of it from there. Does anyone have anything else to add? Are we?
Jeremy, we had a couple of questions in the Q&A that our panelists may want to speak to. I know you answered one of them, but this is the conversation about the difference between religion and Zen and how they interact. And then the question from Judge Johnson about, is Buddhism a religion? So if our panelists want to kind of speak to those, I think that would be helpful in getting our audience questions answered.
I guess I'll start. Religion, the root of religion is religio, like a ligament. It's to reconnect. And so I think that this sort of meditation is religion at its core, in the sense of reconnecting to what's both sacred and in Zen we would always say what is both sacred and profane, because we don't make those distinctions so much on that level. And Zen is certainly a philosophy. It's certainly a way of life. But I always say that it doesn't matter what you believe in Zen, because it's a way of being, not believing.
Definitely better than I can explain it, because like I said, my theological background, not very strong. So definitely good to hear from somebody who can answer that properly. Were there any more questions? Let's see. Oh, there it is.
The Q&A is empty, and then all of our chat is, thank you so much. This was wonderful and helpful, and we're so, very grateful for the session. And in addition, many of you may have noticed that we're recording this. We will put it on our YouTube channel. So if you want, and we'll share the link with you via email. So if you want to share it with your colleagues, you are more than welcome to do that.
Once again, guys, thank you so much for attending the Health Spot. It is a bi-monthly event, so look for a new event to be advertised for October. So thank you very much. We appreciate you and have a great day.
Thank you all.